This podcast was brought to you by Meros cryptocurrency. Meros is a cryptocurrency payment system that does what cryptocurrency originally intended to do. Be a practical and secure form of direct payment, Meros utilizes the best of current technology in a powerful new way. It introduces a groundbreaking consensus mechanism called merit caching. This enables Meros to be both feeless and instant while maintaining the same level of integrity of traditional networks like Bitcoin. To find out how you can participate in the future of crypto payments, go to meroscrypto.io now.
Hello and welcome to State of the Project Meros. This is the June 2020 edition and I am your host Cryptosi. And for this episode, I'm joined by the mercurial talent. Yes, he's back again, the one and only Kayaba. Kayaba, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. The last month's been interesting, so I'm excited to talk about it, and I'm really interested to see what my answers are going to be to your questions.
Yes. Well, we've got some pretty interesting questions coming up. Just to recap viewers or listeners, in case they're new, State of the Project is a podcast which we host once per month where we follow the developments within the Meros project as it goes from a fort inside Kayaba's mighty brain to a fully functioning network, which is a hybrid of proof of work DAG technologies. Is that right, Kayaba?
Correct.
I'm on a roll today. So yeah, please stay tuned. We're going to speak about loads of things in this episode, issues that have been fixed, developer testnet, funding, professionalism, and more. So without any further ado, Kayaba, my first question, developer testnet 4S. How's it going? What has been happening? Talk to me, please. Tell me.
Right. So we did develop for testnet 4S earlier this month. So really, it's a follow-up to Developer Testnet 4. With Developer Testnet 4, we had a lot of new functionality I wanted to test, but unfortunately, it didn't work, to say the least. The node kept on throwing errors related to networking, and there was a lot that needed to be done. So in order to respond to the problems of Developer Testnet 4, we created Developer Testnet 4S, aka Stable. With that, we completely reworked our networking stack. We switched to a better library for doing all of it. And we focused a lot on what errors occurred, and we really added a lot more tests to ensure safe behavior. So then we were able to successfully launch what Developer Testnet 4 was meant to be, and it was something I was actually really excited by. Unfortunately, we did add support for chain reorganizations, and we have support for that, and that's a fortunate part, don't get me wrong. But unfortunately, once we had implemented chain reorganizations and I had verified what I thought would be the case is, there were still bugs left in the protocol that I only found out about when we ran the testnet. So the nodes stayed connected to each other, they weren't exiting out, but at one point the nodes disagreed on which block was better. And once they disagreed on which block was better, they couldn't reconcile. So that's the purpose of chain reorgs. When two competing blocks are found, the best one is chosen. But due to some bug, which I'm still trying to track down, each one claimed their block was accurate and the other person's block wasn't, and this caused them to think one node was invalid and disconnected. So even though the nodes were still online and they still had a somewhat accurate copy of the blockchain, one was worse, one was better, but they were both technically valid. Despite that, the nodes were disconnecting each other and staying in their own group, claiming that the other group was invalid. And this is actually referred to as a network split, and it has a lot of implications, and it removes almost all security from the network, because a perfect network split is 50-50, which means that security is half from the get-go. And with Meros, when we prioritize instant transactions, we require the majority of online validators. Actually, in order to get an instant transaction, it's not 51%, it's 80%. It's in order to finalize at the end of the hour. It's 51%, just technically more. Actually, sorry, it's not even 51%, it's whichever one has the most merit. Sorry, it takes me a second sometimes to think about the intricacies of the protocol. So at the end of the transaction period, which is roughly 1 hour, a transaction is finalized as long as nothing beat it. But in order to count as quote unquote instantly verified, we require a high majority of 80%, which means in order for the transaction to not become verified eventually, over 30% of merit holders have to become malicious, which means over 30% of merit would be deleted, which is a severe edge case I do not ever see happening. because it removes all profit from that 30% of merit, which would require 4 months to gain.
4 months back-to-back block winning you're talking about, right?
100% of the blocks, 4 months of it.
Wow. Okay.
So because of that, just network splits cannot create a viable network, and I've made sure to back up all the databases and all the relevant logs. But until I figure out why the nodes started disconnecting each other, well, I do know why, but why they started to think each other was invalid, we can't really run the next testnet. So I debated creating developer testnet for SW as a developer testnet for stable working. Rather not start appending letters and letters and letters until we end up with a 5-letter combo at the end. So the next testnet we'll do is developer testnet 5. And before we get that going, I do plan to add some more features and work on stability even more.
Oh, do you know, you ruined my joke. I was going to actually make that joke.
Well, I'm sorry I beat you to the punch, Cryptosi.
Oh, don't worry, it's a rare occurrence. It does happen once in a while. I would like to ask you about another commit. Now, this one I found pretty interesting. There was an exchange in GitHub. I will put the link in the description for anybody who's interested. Sat and read through it with my popcorn. Between yourself and Romero, his name's escaping me now. It is Romero, right? Yeah, Jay Romero. And basically, there was a commit which you made, which was supposed to fix. It was literally called Fix 165. Yet when I go into the issues, issue 165 still remains. Could you tell us a little bit about that issue, what the fix you believe to be, and why have you not cleaned up the issue from the code base, which is not like you?
Right. So when we run a test, we run what's called a fuzz test. So to be clear, we have 2 different sections of tests. We have NIM tests, which are written in NIM and directly hook into Meros's internals and test isolated parts of the code base, and they randomly generate data to test. Then we also have Python tests, and these Python tests is a complete re-implementation of the protocol in Python, and it works off static data. I'm not mining every single block every single time. And it works off static tests just to make sure Meros follows the protocol. So this was a NIM test, which has a random value creating all the data that's being fed to it. And this random value is based off what's called a seed. So if you save the seed, you can generate the same random data every single time. And when a test fails, we mark that seed. We print it out saying, here's why the test failed. This seed was used. Check it. So we identified 3 problem seeds. And by the time I got around to fixing the issue, the first no longer was a problem. For whatever reason, it worked again. So then I worked with the other 2 problem seeds, and I successfully got them working. They stopped the error, and it wasn't just hard code. If this seed happened, no, of course, I'd be foolish. I wouldn't actually solve the underlying problem. So I actually created a fix for the underlying problem that fixed both seeds. That said, after I did that, I decided to what I refer to as seed mining. I ran the test until it failed. If it didn't fail, I was going to just run it for a few hours, but if it failed, then I would know that there's still underlying issues with the test. I like doing this when a test fails, because even if the seeds we know work, there could be more seeds which are problematic. So I planned to run it for a couple hours, and after a while, it returned a new failure seed with the same error message. So that means despite fixing a few of the edge cases, there's still underlying problems with this specific portion of the code. So once I identified there was yet another problem, I reopened the issue and attached a new seed. The reason I closed the issue originally is because, yes, even though I didn't spend hours running the test, as far as I can tell, the fix was implemented and all the existing noted failure seeds were passing. So I figured, basically, I would mark it as fixed, and then if I did find a failure seed, I would reopen it. And when I found a failure seed, I did reopen it.
Awesome. Okay, fair enough. I was hoping I could have a dig at you for that, but it seems you've got all your papers in order. The commits that you've added this month, if I were to scrub the Meros name from the top of these commits and put another project there, I don't want to name any names. Let's say, for example, PivX or another project like that. I really
if you say PivX, my answer is going to be biased from the get-go. Let's say Project A.
Okay, Project A. We won't say Project X, Project A. And these commits were here. What would your feeling be about these styles of commits, which have got maybe more about administration than they are about actual quantity of code? Yeah, what would your feedback be on these types of commits, and how do you feel about them? Do you feel that they are useful? Are you happy with this style of development?
So I did look at the past month's commits in advance just to make sure that I was ready to discuss all of them. And my problem with the last month's commits is its quantity. Not each commit, but the quantity of the commits. We did 8 commits, and I have them in front of me. 2 of them were about the same problem. 2 of them were about issue 165. And then, the rest were regular bug fixes. So really, if you count number of commits based on what they were working on, there's only 6. So while I'm happy with each of the individual commits, they all do the relevant work that was needed before submission. What I'm not happy with is how few they were. Really, I hope to have tens of commits a month, like 50 or so. Not just because I like getting those numbers up. No, the numbers are meaningless when you talk about quality of code. I'm not trying to base any metrics, but I'm just saying I like to do a few tasks a day, and I do 1 commit for every task I do. So the part I'm disappointed with isn't with the 6 commits. It's the fact that there were only 6 commits, or again, 8, but 2 of them were working on the same task twice. So you go from 4 to 2. And the reason for that has actually been complicated. So last month was also a slow month because I was moving and there were personal reasons attached. And unfortunately, this month is the same problem. Meros doesn't have a pre-mine. We originally planned one, but I was very happy when we got to remove it. We also don't have corporate investors. We didn't receive ending funding from private parties. And that's actually something I've been extremely happy with. The removal of the pre-mine enables decentralization, and it completely removes all idea of a central team. Because when the network starts up, it's not going to say these people are in charge. And of course, with the functionality, the funding functionality we've added in response to moving the pre-mine, yes, top developers are going to form and they may choose to work together in more organized responses. I'm not trying to say because the funding has been decentralized, there will not be an effective core team. No, there's going to be developers considered core. And that's not something I'm going to try to deny or ignore. And then not being beholden to corporations or any private parties is great for its own reasons. It's mean we truly can focus on the quality of code in the community that we have. We aren't focusing on doing an ICO. We aren't focusing on making sure that our quarterly reports promote the best values. We don't have to focus on creating horrible internet ads that are flat out misleading. We get to focus on the code in the community. That said, because of that lack of cash and the fact that I am not already a millionaire from past projects, it didn't exactly buy Bitcoin when I was 10, I don't have a sustainable source of funding. So for the past month, I've been working on contract jobs. Unfortunately, I've had to put Meros to the side, which is something that I haven't been happy with. That said, by the time this podcast is aired, I should be done with them, and I should have enough funding, not only for the next 2 months, but to also bring on more talent in a more, I don't want to say paid role, but yes, they would be paid, but in a more involved role, which is something I'm excited for.
Right, thanks for that answer. It does lead me on nicely to my next question, which is about developers actually holding reasonable sized stakes in a project. Now, do you think that there is a conflict of interest if, for example, a developer owns a sizable chunk of a particular project? Do you think that then he or she may decide to develop in the best interests of their wallet or in the best interests of the network? Do you think that those conflicts of interest may exist? And do you worry about those personally? Do you take steps to make sure that you don't suffer from those conflicts of interest if you see that they do exist? What are your thoughts on that subject?
This podcast has been brought to you by Rhubarb Media. Rhubarb Media are the branding specialists behind successful crypto projects such as PivX, Vendible, and Libertaria. The Rhubarb style is both loved and respected the world over. So if you want your project to appeal to techies and everyday users alike, give Rhubarb Media a try. You cannot possibly be disappointed. Link is in the description.
A lot of Bitcoin developers argue that the incentive to develop for Bitcoin isn't tips or credit, but the fact that they already have large Bitcoin bags. And they should continue to develop for their wallet to grow, because as Bitcoin gets better, the price of it will go up. Those two events are heavily correlated. That said, that doesn't encourage new developers to join the scene. When we look at funding, we need not to focus on bags, but about people contributing and getting rewarded accordingly, which I believe the Meros funding model allows. That said, Despite the heavy correlation, yes, there can be examples where developers focus price over instead of the network. And even with our funding model, developers can focus on flashy instances of code that don't really contribute, but it makes them popular and therefore makes them eligible for further funding. So it's definitely something we want to watch out for. And I don't want the focus to be DAGs, but with early developers who get funding from the get-go, which is going to be of a larger quantity to lower price and fewer other developers, yes, there is a risk of that as time goes on.
Fair enough. Professionalism. Do you feel that Meros do you think it's important for Meros to be it's difficult to word this really, as it is a decentralized project, but how do you approach professionalism when it comes to Meros? Are you happy with it becoming more of a corporate style project, or are you happy with it just going in whichever direction suits it? What do you feel about professionalism within crypto, but particularly within Meros?
I'm not going to say professionalism. I think professionalism is always a good thing. I don't think corporatism, as in focusing on the cryptocurrency as a business instead of effort, I don't think corporatism is beneficial, because while it brings many great aspects, while it boosts the aspects of the project, while it focuses on not just delivering a good code base, but a usable code base, something that when people buy in isn't going to dump 10 times in price, because that's not a viable currency, something that gets people involved, that encourages steady growth thanks to proper targeted ads, something that has a lot of resources behind it, which not only pays for marketers, it pays for designers, it pays for a full-fledged team of people who can work on it full-time. So while corporatism of cryptocurrency has a lot of benefits, I think cryptocurrencies should focus on being professional. Yet really, in order for them to succeed, I believe they're going to have to be grassroots movements. We can already see with Libra that several corporations are throwing their hat in. And even though they're creating an organization, it isn't something of the people. So while the existing Facebook crowd may get into it, and it will become large, I won't be surprised if it hits the top 10, I don't ever see it becoming superior than Bitcoin or Ethereum. I believe that as those continue to grow and as Libra opens people into cryptocurrency in general, that Bitcoin and Ethereum will go as well, and they'll maintain their dominance. So I don't want Meros to become incorporated. I want to keep an eye on elements of corporatism as they associate with professionalism, but I do think Meros would benefit becoming more professional and benefit from moving off the focus from developers to marketers. And we do have to talk about placing ads, because ads are a great way to grow the project, and that's probably our biggest difficulty right now. Well, we can always say grassroots movement, go tell your friends. A lot of people don't want to share a project when it doesn't have its credibility established. And while we have a lot of code, our test nets have been slow going, as in there's about a month in between each, and the results are varied. So I understand why Meros isn't the most credible project on paper right now, despite our steady development, and that hampers how we can grow as a grassroots organization. So I really want to keep an eye on enabling growth, being professional, and taking the advantages of corporatism. But I think corporatism itself is antithetical to cryptocurrency.
Yes, I would agree. Well said. Okay, so it's the dreaded question I like to ask you every single month. When mainnet?
So I think I've commented this before, but I felt for a while that we fit in the eternal 3 months, where the answer is always 3 months from now, 3 months from now, 3 months from now. And every time I think about this question, the number always ends up as 3 months. But I haven't really contributed to Meros for the past 2 months. And while some other developers and people on our team have done some work, again, as of right now, we don't just have developers on our team. We have a wide variety of people. And while they have been contributing, I will admit I'm still the main driving force behind Meros. And I didn't take these 2 months to account in my plans, so that pushes us back a bit. And already, if we predicted 3 months of work, that means we're still 3 months of work. And honestly, the answer is, I don't know. Best case scenario, 3 months, but I wouldn't be surprised if we waited till about fall for it, because the answer isn't when's the deadline, it's when will we launch? And the answer is when it's ready. And I'm not going to set a deadline, and I'm not going to set any estimates until then. I will say the best case would be 3 months from now, but I acknowledge my history of saying that. And the honest answer is, I don't know, but when it's ready, which may annoy some people, but I'd rather annoy some people and launch a great product than try to please everyone and launch a bad product, which while gaining fame and money quickly ends up failing in the long term.
If you had $1 million to hire either one marketing team or one development team, which would you hire right now and why?
Given that our strong suit so far has been developers, and we've managed to convince other developers to join in as a sort of grassroots movement, we've been open source for a very long time, and that's something I pride myself on. I think our lacking aspect would be marketing, and it would be the area we would most benefit from. So even though I do really think that coding creates the core product, and it's important for the currency to be viable, a currency isn't just based on code, it's also based on usage and stability, which requires community and adoption. So because of that, I would personally pick the marketing team at this time, because that's the weak point in our armor.
Fair enough. Right, Kayaba, that is all we have time for this month. I would like to thank you again for being so generous with your time, concise with your answers, moderately knowledgeable. I guess there's some work you could do there, but all jokes aside, thank you very much for the transparency. It really is eye-opening, refreshing, relaxing. It's a highlight of my month getting to do these podcasts, so thank you very much. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off until July?
There is one other thing. In the past month, unfortunately, time slipped by me, and I didn't really get to make a proper announcement about it. I had been planning to in the upcoming week, likely when I return to work, so maybe even before this podcast is live. But May 20th, I believe May 20th, maybe off a couple of days, in which case this is exceptionally embarrassing, was actually Meros' second birthday. The very first comment put on GitHub was all the way back in 2018. And unfortunately, due to my work, I missed it, which is something that I feel bad about. But I would like to say happy belated birthday to Meros. And when I start back up work, I hope to be able to give it the gift of quality development.
Here. Yeah, happy birthday, Meros. Right, Kayaba, thank you so much. For all of those who have listened right to the end, congratulations, you made it. Give yourselves a pat on the back. Please like, subscribe, all the other good stuff. We will be back next month. Kayaba, before I go, actually, another question. What sorts of things do you think you'll be working on in this upcoming month? Should time be no object and you get to do as much on the project as you would like, which type of things would you like to get stuck into within the next month?
So the immediate thing is realizing why the network split, why they argued about what was a valid block and what is an invalid block, and that's always going to be my immediate issue. Issue 165, despite something that I was still working on, it's actually not that severe of a bug. It has to do with a database mismatching, and it has been in exceptionally rare circumstances with hundreds of thousands of entries. And it's definitely something I have to work on, but it's actually not that too high of a priority. So really, I would want to focus not only on why the network's splitting and keeping an eye on that, but I also want to solve a critical bug we have. I believe you talked about before. It's chain flickering, where a malicious miner can spam nodes to go back and forth between a chain and kind of delay them. And then we also have some other bugs related to wallet management, and those are a higher priority. So I really want to flesh out the RPC a bit and fix the underlying bugs so Meros is ready to be integrated in services. The only other thing I can think of besides all these bug fixing and maintenance is there's a feature I've been meaning to do for a while. It's called dead merit. Basically, if a merit holder stops using their merit for an extended period of time, I actually renamed it because dead merit had two different definitions, so it was confusing. I believe I renamed it to locked merit. So now dead merit refers to merit that dies after a year, because after 1 year, merit disappears, and that's referred to as dead merit. But if you don't use your merit for an extended period of time, merit being what we do proof of stake with, you get it becomes locked, as in it's no longer usable and it's removed from the total merit counter. So the advantage of this is when a merit holder goes offline, if enough of them go offline over time, the network can still function no matter what. And that would be insecure if they could rejoin at any time, but when they rejoin, they have to wait an hour before their votes start getting counted again. So we have managed to keep it secure. So while obviously merit holders going offline does reduce security, it won't negate security on the long run. So this feature is really going to help out with the testnets, because it means even if our volunteers go offline, the network can still continue functioning over time. And it is something I really want to prioritize. This is the next big feature for Meros.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much. Kayaba. And
thanks for having
me. I guess that's it from... Oh, no, you're welcome. You are more than welcome. And I guess that's it from us, and we shall be back with the July episode. So thanks very much for listening, and adios.
This show is brought to you by PIVX, Private Instant Verified Transactions. With its groundbreaking zero-coin staking and masternodes, PIVX is the top privacy currency. Feel free to trade some on Binance or Bittrex. And for more information, go to www.pivex.org.